back to another episode of Military Spouse Moguls. I am your host for this. We're going to get started. So today our special guest is Ashley Gutermuth, which many of you already know. She is popping on social media. She is so funny. I am so excited to have you, Ashley. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It probably is echoing because I just moved into my new house on base. We're in the middle of, I guess at the tail end of PCSing, but I have no stuff, but I do have big empty rooms. So,
and you have Wi-Fi.
I have Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi matters for anybody.
That's the first thing, definitely.
It does. Well, I am excited to talk to you because I am a fan of everything that you do and all the advocacy and the comedy that you throw into it. It gives it such a new spark of life for all the things that you talk about. We're going to jump into MSOI, Military Spouse of the Year. First of all, congratulations. It's exciting. Tell me how you're feeling about the award. What is your goal with the award?
Oh, what's my goal? My goal is to have them give it to me. Let's say I win everything, and then halfway through the year, they're like, Ashley, you are too much. You're fired. You've been too much military spouse. And they kick me out. Then I have to create, like, I don't know if you've ever lived in the South where you see a church, and then right next to it, you see another church. And it's because somebody in that last church made them mad. So they're like, all right, we're mad. Let's create another church and then another one next door. So that's what I'm thinking. That's my 5-year goal. I'm super excited. I think it's awesome. And I'm loving getting to know the other branches, MSOIs, and just, trying to see what happens next and how to best use, the title to, the whole point is to help people, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you already do that. I feel like a lot of your videos and the comedy that you put behind some of these actually really big issues really brings light to it and understanding in a different ways. Instead of coming to it like very official, like this is a problem and it needs to be fixed. You put a lot of authenticity into it, a lot of humor. You put a lot of soul. I think a lot of the things that you're talking about, they resonate with you. So it's really great to see that you're integrating it in that way.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to. I really believe that people won't listen unless you give them something to begin with. So I see people with not even just military spouse stuff, but with everything. They'll whine. They start by whining, and everybody's just like, I have my own problems. Like, I don't care. And everybody relates everything that you say to themselves. So once you sort of understand that they're going to take whatever you say and make it whatever happened in their life. Like, for example, when people say, oh, you think you struggled. Well, I struggled because I grew up, I had a cul-de-sac and my neighbors were rude. Oh, you think you struggled. Then oh yeah, well, only one of my parents worked. And then it goes down to see who has the most pain kind of a situation.
Comparison, right? To see like mine is greater than yours and trying to really take away from other people's experiences. So you do that so well. But let's jump into a little bit of your military background. How did you become a military spouse?
I just, when you go to like the state fair and you throw rings around knives, I did that. I met my husband. We've been together for like 10, 11 years, something like that. And we forget our anniversary every year. Last year, my mother-in-law texted us and she was like, happy anniversary. And we were like, oh, shoot. Should be celebrating that.
No pressure.
But we move so much and we're never like together on any dates like that. So it's just like, it sort of squashes it up. But yeah, so we've kind of been around, we've moved a bunch. He's in the Air Force. He's a full-time Air Force reservist. So he works every day in the uniform, but works for the reserves kind of a situation. And we've lived in a bunch of different places. I've been to Georgia and Delaware and Washington State and New Jersey and Washington, D.C. And now I'm in Texas. Lots of different moves and moves within those moves, it's an interesting life, isn't it? Because you see so many things that other people don't. Like, I have lots of people that I went to school with that haven't moved a mile from where we went to school. And you see that in their Facebook posts.
Yeah. And I've met some spouses and, I start talking about, hey, we PCS here and there. And they're like, we've been here for 12 years. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
it doesn't take away from their struggles or anything like that, because being a military spouse in general, you have your highs and your lows, but it's like, oh, you don't understand my PCS struggle yet.
But it also goes to show how different everything is. Like there's differences within the services, within the jobs, within the services, and within how there's infighting or, you know, like sibling rivalry within each. But yeah, you're right. Some people never move at all. And some, you know, constantly. The shortest we've been in a place is 9 months. But
so with all the moves, how are you navigating entrepreneurship with all these moves? It's
I'm dying.
Hard to juggle as it is, and now you're moving. I swear you were just in New Jersey, and I was like, oh, I just left New Jersey. I'm still in the same place that I went to, but now you're in Texas. So tell me how you're navigating that and trying to grow as an entrepreneur while still supporting your military member.
Just terribly, just really dropping all these balls. It's so hard. You know, when you think about just what it's like to move in general, and like I have my job, I'm a comedian, and I do a lot of public speaking, and I do a lot of social media stuff. At least I can take that with me. It exists wherever I am, and I think about all the people that have to completely reinvent themselves in these new places. So I try to, you know, suck it up a bit. But man, it's so tiring. Just the ideas of every night, you know, we drove to Texas. You're allowed to do what, 350 miles a day. So we would drive. That would take us like 6 hours because we were towing something, and also because I'm paranoid about speeding on the highway. And we would. I'm
not the opposite. I'm like, go faster.
Go fast. Let's get there. So you get to your hotel at night, which is in the middle of nowhere, in a place you've never been, and then you're like, oh my God, do I want to lose all my stuff that I'm leaving in the car? Is it okay if it's stolen? No, let's spend an hour and a half lugging it all in, go get food, go to sleep, wake up. And there's just, there's no time, it feels like. And even now, you know, we heard about this move. This is a quick turn move. So we heard about it maybe like 2 months ago or so. So it's pretty fast to go from just hearing about it to, you know, actually being in a place. And just the pure adrenaline and exhaustion that happens that entire time. I don't know. I just feel like, oh my God, I feel like I don't have time to do anything. But also like there's so much to do.
Right. As a business owner. Well, not only are you trying to move yourself and your, you know, where you're going, but you're also trying to manage your business and grow your business and scale it. How are you managing that? Are you give us some tips? Are you using calendar, using Instagram? What are you using to manage all of these moves and still like explode like you're exploding?
You just throw absolutely everything you possibly can at the wall every day. You try the absolute best you can. And sometimes you fail a little bit and then you just let it go and you do it again the next day. There's a comedian called Sarah Millican, and she's a British comedian. She has a rule. This is a comedy rule, but it is, if a gig went bad, you're only a good or bad. You're only allowed to think about it until 11 a.m. the next day. They call it Millikan's Law. Well, you can think about that with entrepreneurship. If you had a bad day yesterday, you're only allowed to think about that or a loss until 11 a.m. the next day, and then let it go. You got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, don't stay.
So I think about that a lot.
Don't stay stuck in the negative. And I've never heard that. What a great tip, and what a great way to look at things. Like you can have your pity party if it was a bad thing only until 11 o'clock the next day. I love that. You're like, okay, 11:01, now going back to conquering the day. We're done. Putting myself in timeout for that little bit of time. And then after that, I'm going to put my big girl pants on and I'm going to get to it.
Exactly.
So how has humor played into this journey, entrepreneurship and military spouse? Like, how did it all start? Because when I see you and I look online, I see like, you've been doing this forever, but we all have to start somewhere. So tell us what got you started into doing something like this and putting this humor behind military issues and advocacy.
But yeah, so I was a comedian before I talked about the military spouse stuff, or before I even said I was a military spouse, because especially at the earlier on, my husband was gone a lot. So deployed or just away for a month. And I had, you know, PCS, you're around nobody that you know. So I didn't want to be out at gigs, which are typically in clubs, or coming back at midnight, walking to my car after I've just told an audience I'm all alone, and I'm heading back. I mean, why don't you go human traffic me right now? So I would, I didn't really talk about it. And then I started making videos just because I thought it would be fun. I was making videos about other things, but I thought that it would be neat to just say that there was a military spouse paycheck. And that caused a lot of people to be like, oh my God. People love it when they get to feel like they're causing a little bit of trouble. And to give them an excuse to that is to feel that way lets off a lot of pressure within them. And so then I just kept going within that same sort of theme. And one of the reasons that I like it is because I'll get so many messages from people that are like, oh my God. Well, I'll tell you a direct example that happened last week. So I PCS'd here, and then a couple days later, I had to go to do shows. And my shows were in Washington, D.C., and then New Jersey, and then Columbus. So I had to do all that in a week. So PCS, and then travel.
Wow.
And I was sitting at the airport, and I was in, there was nobody in the seat next to me. And they're trying to type up invoices or something on my computer. And this guy comes up and sits next to me. And I'm just like, all right, like there's tons of other seats. Why are you sitting right next to me? And he goes, excuse me, I just want to tell you that your videos have made it so much easier for me to communicate with my brother who joined the military. And we didn't have anything in common anymore. And now we can share your stuff and we can laugh about it. So I get those things all the time, especially like parents. This is how we are able to talk about it. Or I didn't know that my family, like this guy my brother kept asking me for money for loans, and they were using it for food. They were food insecure, and I could never understand why. And then I watch your videos and I find out how the money issues happen. And, so I try to help explain those things, but that's one of the good things that have come out of it, is that more people get to have conversations that are hard to have, but you can do it in a funny way.
You're educating also our civilian counterparts, like you said, family members who don't understand military life. Like every time we move, my dad still asks if we're going to get paid. Like I'm like, Dad, we get paid the whole time. Like they pay us. He's like, for everything. I'm like, not really for everything. We'll still get a paycheck. So I have to keep I keep telling him, like, Dad, Roy still gets a paycheck. He's like, even if he's not working for 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, Dad, he still gets a paycheck, but my dad's a civilian.
Right, because they're making a move. It'd be rude if they were like, you have to move, but also we're not going to give you any money at all. We're not going to pay.
Oh my goodness. So tell me a time maybe that you have had to an example of a time you've used humor to navigate difficult situations. I mean, obviously speaking to you, you always have to kind of put that in there and look at the brighter side, but share something that maybe you had to navigate with your humor during a difficult situation.
Yeah, well, lots of things. I mean, I've always wanted to be a comedian. I had a childhood that was sort of rife with troubles. Just like I wouldn't really trade much of it, but a lot of it is crazy. I had a lot, like every generation in my family, somebody commits suicide. Everybody. There's, and it's through all the branches. One of my first memories is coming home and finding out that had happened to my uncle. So talking about that, and also able to talk about people that have had those type of similar things happen, and talk about it in lighthearted ways, makes those things easier. Or like how I was, so I had to change schools when I was in middle school, because there was all these girls that thought that I was gay and wanted to stab me. The other half thought that I was trying to steal their boyfriend. If only they could come together. They were if only they could come together. So I ended up in the situation where, I have all of these people that are making either an assumption or either just wanting to, they were like threatening me and all these things. Well, my dad's solution to that was to take me to a flea market and buy me a stun gun. So I used to walk around as you have a middle schooler, don't you? Do you have a middle schooler?
I do, but I mean, next year, just give them a stun gun.
I was in 6th grade. So in 6th grade, I strapped a stun gun to my belt. I had a SpongeBob visor and aviator sunglasses, and I would walk through the mall going Claire's Accessories.
Have you
So,
told this story before?
people definitely tell people this story because it's so, it's so out there. I remember it, and I'm sure I'll inherit that stun gun someday because my dad keeps everything, so it's in storage units. It'll be some rusty stun gun, but things like that where you can have bad things happen to you, and you will have bad things happen to you. If you can make them funny, then it gives them a new life and something that exists that wouldn't have existed before if that bad thing hadn't happened. You create a whole new piece of art or jokes or something, and that makes it have a point, whereas before the point was that it was sad and it sucked. Okay, well, if you can make a joke about it, well, now there was something funny came out of it, and it's a whole new feeling.
Right. And it really changes the trajectory of whatever you're going through when you add that humor. Tell me about, so how has military spouse influenced your approach to entrepreneurship? Because navigating those waters, and we're talking a little bit about it as we've been conversing here, tell us a little bit more about how military spouse influenced your approach to entrepreneurship.
Well, what it gives me is a lot of people to look at and go, oh, okay, let's see what they're doing. Like, there's tons of military spouses that are so good at so many things. So I can look at them and go, all right, what are the programs are they using, or what's their strategy? I love to learn from what other people are doing. That's my big, it's one of my superpowers is to take, I'll take criticism fine. I'll take advice fine. And if I see somebody doing something better, I'm like, okay, that's somebody that knows what they're doing. I can learn from those smarter people. I have no ego about that at all. But there's just so many great military spouses that they're better than me at so many things. Like, I can make silly videos all day long. Invoices, Tony. I was talking about this tonight. I can't do it. I don't know why I can't make myself do it.
It hurts you to send invoices for money. I wish I had that problem.
I can't. It's the being on the computer, and I'm just like typing in the names and what are the expenses. I had to do the taxes the other day. My husband had to do the taxes with me whining the entire time. So that's the bad side of my entrepreneurship. But I think that the real skill is to be able to find people that, and this is the question I ask, is what do you like to do when I go to hire somebody? What do you like to do? And then I try to use those to swim downstream. Let's always go with it. Go with the flow and figure out what people like to do, and then hire those people so that they're excited to do whatever it is that you don't want to do. I don't want to do.
Whatever you don't like to do, you need to find out what that is and then hire somebody to do that so you can work in your zone of genius. So you're not wasting 100%. Magical brain power to do the thing that you hate, which actually takes double the amount of energy because it is not your thing, right? This is your thing, right? Being on, coming at the jokes and really bringing that to life, that comes very natural to you. So yeah, we have that thing in entrepreneurships, like figure out what you don't like to do. And that is the first thing that you outsource somebody else to do.
Yes, please.
How have you managed to balance your personal life with your professional life as a military spouse entrepreneur?
I have no personal life and I have no work-life balance.
I don't think any of us do. Like, we've tried to say I have a work-life balance. There's really never 100% a balance. I feel like at sometimes something always kind of struggles with the other. So if your business is elevating and you're doing great, family stuff or self-care stuff might start dwindling down. Then you kind of remember yourself or your family, you kind of go back and forth. It's a scale, right? There's no perfect way to do it.
It definitely is a scale. And there's a lot of feeling guilty about one thing or another. What am I doing here? Like, okay, so we moved here, and the first day that we moved into this house, even we're not going to get our stuff for weeks, but we had a chief induction. So I had to go to a formal mess dress event. And I'm just like, well, they're going to get whatever they're going to get, and the people at this event are going to deal with it, whatever I'm wearing, because I don't have ball gowns packed in my moving luggage, things like that. But I think you're right. I don't think anybody has a very good work-life balance. I think people make it up. You see the videos where people just try to make one another feel bad, where they're just like, oh yes, I was just at spa and I was doing this. and
Hey,
look
wait
at
a
my
minute.
kids,
I
and they're
have
all
some of those
beautiful.
videos, but that's how I work life balance. I make sure I prioritize myself so that I don't burn out, so I can fill my cup, so I can keep filling other people's cups.
Well,
You're talking
this
about my
table is
videos.
it's burning. Where it's like their
I
kids
know.
are perfectly manicured or
Yeah.
whatever, their hedges are beautiful. I am full force all the time, just hammer. I'm a bulldozer, just like bulldoze through. Keep going, keep going. I have ran every day, at least a mile a day for 8 years. I was terrible at running. I started doing that to beat running. It wasn't to lose weight. It wasn't for any of those things, except for that running was, I would wheeze. I was terrible. And if I take the lesson from that, is that if you do a little bit of something every single day, you will get to the point where 8 years later, you can run forever.
Wow.
Or do anything forever. I can run 10-minute miles, 9-minute miles indefinitely and talk to you, have a full-on conversation at the whole time. I can eat, I can blow my nose. I've been hit by 2 cars. I ran with COVID.
Wow.
Just a little bit, where you just do a little bit every day. And then that chisels away at whatever it is you're trying to take down.
I love that, because my next question was going to be, what advice would you give to spouses who want to start their own careers, their own businesses? And I feel like that is such a great piece of information, like a little bit every single day, even working through the days that you're not feeling good, or knowing when to rest, or just keep kind of chipping away at it. So I love that.
And that little bit could be one sentence. It's just keeping that streak alive. It could be one teeny tiny thing, one touch your toes kind of a thing, whatever it is your goal is. But the other piece of advice is to get out of your own way. The only person that is in your way is you. There's tons. Sometimes people will come to me with like, how do you deal with all the hate comments? How do you deal with all the people that are rude to you? Once you realize that you will not think about that person a few hours later, none of it matters. You're like, they could say whatever this most disgusting thing there is to you, but you know what? A week from now, are you going to care? No. So that means you shouldn't care in that moment. Therefore, react however you want.
Yeah.
You could play with them. I like the cat's paw people, which is just, play with them like a ball of yarn.
Yeah.
But don't, get out of your own way. You are your biggest roadblock and champion.
Yeah, no. And that is one of the biggest things that we have conversations about all the time. And I'm sure you do too, in your messages or when you're meeting spouses, is they're in their own way because they are trying to, they're looking at their past and not looking at what they can be in the future. And instead of like, just get out of your own way and do it. Progress is better than perfection. Just getting started, one sentence a day, whatever it is that you're doing to achieve that goal or to start that business. It doesn't all have to happen in one whole day. It takes time to build this. Like you said earlier, you were a comedian before the military spouse world learned, or the military community learned about what you were doing. So it's taking you some time. How long have you been a comedian?
Oh, I've written
all your life. You were born this way.
I was born this way. It's funny, in my I have found some high school stuff recently, and there's jokes in there that I like, full on pamphlet style jokes that are still kind of like cute, funny things. So I was always writing, and that's an important thing to know too. If there's something that you have that you just do, try to find ways to go with that flow and figure out what that is. And it might not always be just that one thing. It might spread out into, I never thought that I would be talking about food insecurity and things like that. But I always feel as a person, I have a tremendous amount of responsibility for everyone. I, for some reason, have taken that on. I don't know if it's like a firstborn thing or what, but I seem to take responsibility for everything. So I think, well, if I have this whatever platform or whatever I should be able to talk about things that can help other people. Now, the flip side to that is when you start to do that, you will get people that come out of the woodwork. They're like, you should use your platform for this. They decide.
Yeah.
And it's never that. It is always, I decide. And tomorrow I decide that it's going to be to save armadillos. Guess what, Moni? We're saving armadillos.
Okay. Yeah, and I think there's so much power in that, and a lot of spouses don't embrace that, right? Being okay with not everybody liking what you do or being in the niche that you serve. There's so much power in that, and I love that you said that, because whoever is listening can take that and kind of implement it in their life. Because as a spouse, you're always looking around and thinking, well, this person's doing this, I don't want to offend somebody. All these different things go through your mind when you're building a business. So that is a really great piece of advice. So tell me, can you share a story, which you have been the whole time? I love all your stories. They're so relatable too. You share these stories and it's like, oh, that could be me, or that was me, or that, you know, I'm that now. Can you share a success story from your entrepreneurship journey as you were building, maybe that you could share with the audience that might resonate with somebody who's actually going through that right now?
Yeah, you know, when I first started, just like figuring out that my skill as a comedian could also be used to give like keynote speeches. You know, you and I met in person at the Airlift Tanker Association, and you know, where we were both giving like keynote speeches, where you know, you can take a little piece of what you already do and go, all right, what other avenues does it fit into, and would I like to do that? That's an important part. So I feel like that was pretty pivotal, because it allows me to do so many other different things. So yeah, just because that's been a whole new level of different types of events. You know, there's things that I really like to do, like hosting events. You know, I hosted a MOA event recently where it was a fundraiser where I'm up there the whole time, and I do some jokes, but I'm also introducing generals and things like that. And I love those types of things. I love probably to take responsibility and control the whole situation. You know, how can I keep whatever it is going properly?
All right, Ashley. So tell me, how can the military community support and promote the entrepreneurial efforts of military spouses?
Oh my goodness, whether, you know, if you know a military spouse that has a business, share their stuff, buy their stuff,
Yes.
all of that, those good things, you know, those, you know, sharing it is free, right? And saying that you like it, even if you don't, no. Yeah, I think that that's definitely the biggest way to do it, is just look at your friends that are trying. Even if they're doing something that you're just like, oh man, that's not going to work. It doesn't matter. You're just seeing it when it's a seed.
Yeah.
It's going to grow. And then if you are supportive and nice and not a monster, who knows what could happen? And maybe they'll give you a job someday.
Yes. And you make a really good point, because sometimes when you start a business, or when you're a comedian, or when you want to start a PR company, people will say, oh, I don't think that's going to work. But if you keep going forward and you walk in that gift, and you want to make it work, and you chip at it every single day, it can happen. So if you're looking at Ashley and you're like, wow, I really want to do something like that, you can do it. It is doable, but you have to take it one day at a time, one step at a time. And we were just talking about how you're going around now speaking and sharing your story and all of these things in our military community. Are you finding that you're really able to engage and learn more about some of the issues that we're having when spouses are talking to you or DMing you around different things that maybe you weren't aware of, because now you have this platform that you're speaking on?
I definitely have a lot of people that send me messages and tell me their stories, which is great, because then I'm able to, when I go to, you know, I was at a dinner the other day where I was sitting next to a 2-star who was having meetings about some of the topics that this person had issues with. So people definitely should send me their stories, because then I'm able to speak intelligently with you know, people that can actually make change. And I'll tell you, they'll ask me, they'll say, okay, what do you think we should be doing? What are the problems out there? And I'll say, well, you know, maybe let's look at this, as opposed to like one of the things that always gets me is usually people will want to increase BAH. Let's increase BAH. Well, that's great, except for the vast majority of people that live on base, and all that money is just going to go to the housing companies who we're already sort of at odds with. If people have mushrooms
Oh my-
growing in their house, I don't know why we should give those companies more money.
More money to them, right?
I don't know. So I feel like there should be another system where the money can go towards, food. And I know we're working on that. But just making people aware of what the issues are. And then I can just, with my dogged determination, keep rattling those cages.
And people are listening to you because they're inviting you to come and share more about your journey. When I heard you speak at the Airlift Tanker Association, you shared about a veteran story that you learned about, and it just really gave a lot of people food for thought, kind of is what you're leaving them with. You're dropping kind of a cliffhanger and you're like, what do you think of that? What are we going to do to fix it? Right. And it's getting to these 2 stars and there's these 3 stars and you're having these conversations and it just puts you in that position. So what a great platform that you've built and you're advocating on our behalf. So from a military spouse to another, and I know those that are listening, thank you so much, because sometimes we're not heard. And I know that's how spouses feel a lot of the times, that their needs are not being met and they're not being heard, because what comes first is the veteran, which we love the veteran. We love the military, but sometimes we're a volunteer force, and it's like, what else can we be doing to help the families and to help the spouses? So I applaud you for going and fighting the good fight for us and putting it out there, because you do it in such a way, like I said, it's like a cliffhanger. People are like, oh, I didn't think about that. And you're making people think about problems in a different way to want to take action and speak up about it. Where a lot of people will say like, hush, we're not going to talk about that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what you're doing. And I really love that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, and try to make it easier for people we're really good at hiding our problems and hiding our stories. And my goal is to bring civilian families that have had they just care about the country and they support the military. Those are the people who we need their support, so that they will realize, and we can all rally together and understand how to make the country stronger, because really it's about recruitment and retention.
Yes.
And like you said, it's an all volunteer force. And yes, we love the veteran, and that is always, a big part of it. But just like I told General Brown, the head of the Air Force, give me 2 weeks and I can nag my husband into going to the airlines. So
we were just talking about that literally an hour ago, about retention and how everybody's going to the airlines.
Yeah, well, it ends up being a family decision. And why are we losing all the legacy people? Like, you're not going to tell your kid to join the military if you are food insecure, or if you have terrible housing, or if you have all of these things. You're not going to do it. And it's important. This is what I say time and time again. If you don't support military families, you don't support the military.
Yeah.
This is really what it boils down to.
It certainly is, because the military member's obligation is to the family too, and make sure that the spouse is happy and the family is happy and secure. So, wow, this has been such a great conversation. And it goes back to what I was saying. You're able to take comedy and plug it into serious situations to give people food for thought and allow them to take a peek at what it is to be a spouse and have that voice. So let's get into final thoughts. So what is one person that has inspired you the most in your life, and why?
Oh man, who has inspired me the most? I don't know. There's a lot of comedians that I like that have, some have better work ethics than others. The person that I talked about before, Sarah Millican, she's got a great work ethic, constant. She's one of those people where if you read her book, she talks about how she basically goes to exhaustion. The therapist says you need to go on a vacation. She hates it. You'd rather be working, which is nice that you like.
Yeah.
Eventually your body gives out. And I know when that's happening for me, because I start like forgetting more and more things, or I have a head injury from a car accident. So I'll replace words that won't make any sense, and then I know I need to let it down a little bit. But other than comedians, it's very difficult for me to just think of a person that is inspirational, because I take bits and pieces from everything. And I'm constantly like, I read people's autobiographies and biographies all the time to just sort of see what they overcame. And you start to see, oh, okay, what is happening to me isn't so isn't so hard. There's a British comedian, Eddie Izzard, and she is amazing. The comedy in, I don't know, like 8 different languages.
Wow.
And running ultra marathons without ever running before, and running them in the desert, and having her body break down, and just traveling all over the world, and talking about hard issues and things like that, and making those funny. So probably Eddie would be up there. But yeah, I try to take a little bit from everybody.
It's crazy. All right, well, final thoughts. What resource would you like to share with the military spouse audience? Something most of our listeners are going to be military spouses who maybe want to start a business or just need some encouragement.
Oh, you know what? First of all, you're doing great. I'm offering I'm giving you encouragement. I want to look it up because it's a little bit different than, military families. I always say military one source. Because sometimes people will be like, what, really? I'm like, yeah, use it. There's definitely a lot of free things on there. But another good one that you get like 5 free searches for is Answer the Public. Do you ever use that?
No, I've never heard of it.
It's one of those things where you type in, and there's other websites for it, but you type in something related to whatever your business is, or whatever. You could type in military spouse or military, and then you'll get all the questions that people are asking on Google related to what that is. So it'll be like, well, what is a military spouse paycheck? Or how long can you retire in the military? Things like that. And you get to kind of get some insight into what everybody is searching on Google.
What a great resource, especially for business owners, because they always are looking for who is your ideal customer, how to solve the problem with what their service is. So this is great. I mean, I've never even heard of that page, that site, but I'm going to be using it, and I'm going to be definitely sharing it with my entrepreneurial military spouses, because that is a great resource. Any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Just remember to get out of your own way. And do the thing, whatever it is. And you don't have to do that same thing forever. It could turn into something completely different. You just have to do something, do a little bit of something every day, even if it makes you want to burn your eyes out because you're so tired. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit of burn. And where can we find you?
I am everywhere. I post things on Instagram. I have a website, ashleygutermuth.com. I post on Pinterest. I post on LinkedIn. We're talking about business. I post on LinkedIn because nobody else is posting silly comedy clips on LinkedIn. They're all trying to be serious. I don't have an HR department, and I don't ever want to have a real job ever again. So I am burning that bridge.
You are going against the grain on LinkedIn. You're doing it all wrong, but it's all right. I love that. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and for sharing all of your insight and knowledge with our military spouse community. I know that they got some great words of wisdom, and just keep crushing it.
Thank you. It's great to talk to you and see you again.
You too. I'll see you soon. Bye.